Yeah, so we find out that when it comes to malaria modeling, um, the first person to begin to look at the questions around modeling of malaria was not actually a mathematician, was a medical doctor, and who had an interest in answering questions in malaria and using mathematics. So he came to a conclusion. His name is Sir Ronald Ross. Say, as a matter of fact, all epidemiology concern, as it is with the variation of disease, from time to time and from place to place, must be considered mathematically. However, many variables are implicated if it is to be considered scientifically at all. To say that a disease depends upon certain factor is not to say much until we can form an estimate as to how likely each factor influences the whole results. And the mathematical method of treatment is really nothing but the application of careful reasoning to the problem at issue. Now, he came and made us to know that the use of mathematics is very, very important in answering questions in epidemiology. Now, and made us to see the need that the maths is a tool, but the questions come from the epidemiology. The tool to solve the question is mathematics, but the problem or the question comes from the epidemiology of malaria, epidemiology of cancer, epidemiology of hepatitis B, or epidemiology of HPV, and any disease you may be looking at, either infectious or non-infectious disease. So, but now the issue around it is not just also to just kumba yourself with the mathematics alone. Now in Nigeria, we found out that a lot of people are doing many things in mathematical modeling, but you'll find out that what we are doing is basically more theoretical, that does not really respond to the question that the public heads are really interested. Now, if you look at a basic mathematical modeling paper from Africa, from Nigeria, you will find somebody developing a model and then looking at some basic mathematical properties of the model, like activity, boundedness, invariant region. You can tell what a mathematical model, what it will contain in Nigeria. And this has been a repeated version over the years. And people are not interested in that kind of repetitive research. Research is supposed to come with innovation, come with dynamism, come with increasing knowledge. So, but if we keep repeating the same thing, and then the solution is not coming out. So now he came and said, the issue on ground is not just to be, he said, must be considered mathematically, in the sense that disease changes from time to time and from location to geographically. Now, the way malaria is spreading, or the way malaria is transmitting in a particular location is different from other locations. I'll give an instance now. Malaria is in Nigeria and is endemic in Nigeria, but you find out that I may want to work on Ondo State. Ondo State is very close to Ekiti State, but the dynamics of malaria in Ondo State is completely different from Ekiti State. Now, this is dependent on so many things, like the demography of Ekiti State, the geographical location, and so many other things, factors may also have the way disease is spreading. And then you also find out that the way malaria is spreading in the north will also be different from the south because of so many other reasons when it comes to the climatic factors and then other issues, sociological factors and psychosocial factors and all that. So you find out that some of these things play around the way disease spread in locations and from place to place, from time to time, and all that. So, and then now, Ronald Rose also, to say that a disease depends upon certain factors is not to say much. Now, when you see people in epidemiology or people in public health, they focus more on the factors, the risk factors, they use statistics and all of that, but you don't get to the depths of that particular disease. Let's take, for instance, a disease is spreading. Take, for instance, COVID. When COVID was spreading, we were counting cases. But it's not just about the cases. What is producing the cases are the transmission. So if you don't understand the underlying transmission, which is producing the cases, now we continue to see cases and we are trying to address cases, but we are not addressing transmission. So you find out that now when it comes to bringing in mathematics and mathematical models, help us to be able to see the mechanism around transmission dynamics of actually made us to see things that we cannot see with statistics, things that we cannot. And then when you use the mathematics and you use the data, now because now I'm having a data on malaria or other diseases, I'm using the data, and then I'm also using the mathematics, the mathematical model, to be able to parameterize some of the parameters I have in my model, and then to be able to predict and build some scenario analysis going forward. And then you find out that until we can also form an estimate as to how largely each factor influences the whole result. Now, how large is temperature? How is it influencing malaria? So we can only do that if we have a mechanistic model with data. Data of that particular location, data on temperature, data on malaria. That's where we can do this kind of stuff. And then I'm saying that, and the mathematical method of treatment is really nothing but the application of careful reasoning to the problem at issue. So it means that it is not just about the rigorosity of the maths, but it's about the question I want to answer. Now, when it comes to public health, the interest is, what question am I answering? Now, the question does not come from maths, the question comes from the public experts. Now, the tool now, or method of solution, comes from mathematical model, mathematics, depending on the question. So as we go on, we'll be able also to see, is it all questions that mathematical model can answer? These are things we need to think about. Is it all questions that I need statistical model to answer? And what are the available models that can use or explore a different situation as it demands? Next slide. Now, modeling. Why are we bothered about modeling? Why do we need models? Now you find out that when epidemic, like when you talk about epidemic or even endemicity, now one of the things you cannot do is that you cannot use human being as like guinea fowl to use for experiments. So it's actually unethical. So you can't begin to bring human being and then begin to, like during COVID, and put them in the lab. How many, apart from that, you find out that when it comes to epidemic, it's a population thing. It's a population biology thing. So there is no way you can just begin to bring people here and there, and then you just gather them so that you can begin to test them and begin to put them in or inject some vaccination or some things into them and all that. It's not ethical. So, and then apart from that, the process of experiment is also very expensive. Now, number two is also the fact that outbreaks, epidemics, they are natural phenomena. There are things that you cannot repeat. Can we repeat COVID? You can't repeat COVID. You cannot repeat COVID. So that brings the need for modeling. Now, there is an outbreak. People want to understand how this disease is spreading. They want to know how it's transmitting. So the mathematical model is there, as a very cheap product. It's very cheap because you just need a good brain and a good laptop with some software and then with good data, and then you can begin the work even in your home, in your room, and begin to solve problems. So the need to plan. So the public health want to plan for outbreaks. How do we plan? Now, what kind of plan? People need to plan the number of hospital beds, the number of maybe treatments drugs they need to provide, the number of space they need to provide in case, because an epidemic is declared after 5 cases. Number 5 cases, according to according to MSF, that after 5 outbreaks, you declare an epidemic. Now, when you declare an epidemic and then you find out that the number of people within 1 week is increasing. Imagine if there is an epidemic now, within 1 day, we are having 5,000 people having the disease. The health center in Foye is going to collapse because they don't have the bed. So, but modeling helps you to plan. Now, if I have, currently now, there is Ebola Bodinguya within the borders of Uganda and Congo. You understand? And a lot of people are facing it. Ebola is very dangerous disease and all that. And this one is another strain entirely.
Morning.
It's a new strain. And I mean, we need to now begin to study how this kind of Ebola is. It's not the same thing with the Ebola we had before because a viral disease. A viral disease is always evolved. There's a serious mutation with any virus. So you find out that due to that mutation, the treatment or the vaccination they are using for the one they had before is not the same thing with this one. And the way it's spreading is not the same. So then there is need to plan for outbreak. And then in the course of the plan, you want to understand the speed of the spread. The speed of the spread. How fast is it spreading? And how long is it spreading? Then the severity in terms of what are the number of people that are dying due to the disease? Are we having high mortality? Is it the number of people dying or case fatality rate? Is it very high or very low? We need to know. And then we need to start thinking of intervention effectiveness. So what are the available interventions available, like control intervention? How effective are they? Like for COVID, there was none on ground. And then people need to start thinking of NPIs, non-pharmaceutical interventions. So a lot of arrangement went into that, and that brought a lot into the economy.
I'm from Cameroon.
Going down.
I'm from Cameroon.
People were not doing business. A lot of the airports.
I'm from Cameroon. Whole Master of Science in Atomic Molecular Physics and Biophysics at the University of Yaoundé 1.
There's never been a day in this life that people don't travel that airport. In COVID, it was closed down. So money was not flowing. You knew what happened after COVID now, all over the world. You know, it affected the economy. You know, that is one thing disease can do. When health is bad, especially when it's on a global one, which is pandemic, it can affect everything. It is when you are okay that you can go to market, that you can do other things, that you can do research. When you are not okay, you will be in your house trying to take care of yourself. And when the world does not understand what COVID is, everybody stayed at home because the disease was different. So now, then that was when modeling was working. It was giving answers. Now, like the issue of social distance, all those things were put in place. It was modeling 1.5 meter between the other person and you. It was modeling that made them to discover that they didn't just arbitrarily say 1.5. No, modeling brought about that prediction. And then the issue of other NPIs that were put in place. You understand? Don't shake hands, nose masks, all of those things. They factored in and they built scenarios. And they saw that, okay, at a certain percentage, this is going to work in different locations. And apart from that, you also find out that by the time they also want to introduce vaccination, they told you that they are going to vaccinate the people that are having a weak immune system first, and the older ones. The reason was because they are the most affected, the population that are at high risk. Young people had it. And you know, like Nigeria, disease is also a function of age in terms of demography. COVID was an age stuff because the pyramid, the population pyramid of Nigeria is different from that of Europe. Nigeria has more than 60% of its population that are young people. So a lot of young people had COVID and they get out of it because they don't have any underlying issues. You understand what I'm saying? So eventually you find out that the way COVID was transmitting in Europe that had large number of aged people was not the same way it's transmitting in Nigeria. So, and that's what we also say, that some factors that play when disease comes in a particular population. That's why you cannot really say that, oh, if I use this particular thing in this particular location, it's going to work for this particular location, because you need to understand that location, the people there, the population of interest is very, very important that you need to factor into that. Now, and then we need, what kind of model do I need? And it depends on the question you want to answer. Now, the question you want to answer determines the kind of model you need. Is it statistical model? Is it dynamic or mathematical model? Is it health economic model? The question you need, the question is not schooling. Your questions will determine the kind of model you need. Now, the public health epidemiology wish list. Now, when there is an epidemic, now, as a mathematical modeler or as a mathematician, I have my wish list in terms of what do I want to do? How do I want to address maybe what is going on? And then the public health also have interests. Now, the public health people, they are asking the question that, okay, we are looking for answers on the following thing, like estimation of the reproduction number. They want to know, how many, what are the number of infected persons that we are going to have in the long run. If you have one infected case, just one infected case, how many is it going to produce over a long period of time? Especially in a population where nobody is non-susceptible. Everybody is susceptible. You will find out that. So, and then and other epidemiological thresholds. So you want to look at like maybe prevalence, incidence, mortality, case fatality rates. They want to understand those things. And then they also want to understand the behavior of the disease spread, the spreading speed. Is it like, because if the reproduction number is 10, it means that if I calculate the reproduction and it's 10, it means that at least one person will infect 10 persons, at least 10 persons, one, at the same time. Like for malaria now, it's 100. So at least one person will infect 100 persons when you have malaria through mosquito, an infected mosquito. Now, when peak is attained, so they want to know when will the peak, when are we going to get to the peak of the disease? So at the peak, you are saying the largest number of people that have been infected. That's the peak. And then when the epidemic will die out, when will the epidemic die out? When will it go down? The question is in their mind. Are we going to continue like this? For COVID, it continued for 1 year. It was going. Large number of people were infected. And then, is there multiple waves phenomenon? Like you're having 2 peaks. Maybe you had a peak in a particular month or a week, and then you have another peak again. So those are multiple waves. And that one is more dangerous because what it means is that you are trying to catch up with the disease as it's having a peak here, it's going down. You thought it's going down, you are relaxing. The next week you are seeing it's going up again. The number is increasing. And that's what is happening to Ebola Bodinguya now in Congo, border, and Uganda. So it's going, you're having multiple waves and all that. So those are their interests. They want to see. Sorry. Then they also want to know estimation of disease burden, mortality, prevalence, incidence. They want to estimate. And then expected number of infection and disease-induced deaths, expected number of hospitalization. How many people are going to be hospitalized? How many beds do we have? COVID, a lot of people have been on the floor in the hospital. I saw it in Iran, Iraq. People were sleeping on the floor because there were no bed space. Now, evaluation of control strategies, targeted strategies like herd immunity, cost of intervention, optimal allocation of limited resources. Then the public health is also interested in answering questions like how severe will the epidemic be? The severity can be in two different ways. Total number of infected people who may require medical care. If the total number of infected who may require medical care, if they are more than the available resources, then the health system will what? Collapse. Imagine you are bringing about 500,000 people to an hospital where you have 10 doctors. The doctor themselves, they will what? Collapse. And then what happened? So maximum number of infected people at any given time, also important in terms of the severity. Then number two is how long will it last? That's another question. When will it peak? What will be its time course? So the duration, they want to know the duration. Is it going to be stay here for long? Look at malaria now. Malaria is not epidemic. What is it now? It's endemic. It's persistent. So malaria has come to stay, and some of us are sitting down there asymptomatic. 80% of the population are asymptomatic, and that's why it's difficult, because nobody asymptomatic, you are not showing symptoms. So you don't go to hospital when you are not feeling symptoms. Do you go to hospital? And you sit down at home, and then you are contributing. When mosquito bites you and somebody does not have it, you go and pick it and all that. So now at asymptomatic, you have grown some level of what we call pseudo recovery. But what happens? Sometimes you have some level of immunity that is due to several inoculation. But when you are stressed, you break down to malaria. Not necessarily because you are beaten. Do you understand? Stress can make your immunity to go down. That's pseudo immunity. And then the malaria will come again. It will come up. And then you are rushed to the hospital. So now, which is normally the case we are having in Nigeria most times in an endemic settings like us. So how effective will quarantine or vaccination be? So when it comes to disease, another interest of the public health is what are the interventions available and what are the optimal interventions that we need. Because now in determining that, you have to not just do that arbitrarily. Modeling will speak and tell you which one will be the optimal one to use. Then what quantity of vaccine or antiviral drugs should be stockpiled? Now, in terms of disease, especially infectious disease, the best intervention always, so far, we have read about is vaccination. Especially, during the time of smallpox, that smallpox is one of the diseases that have been eradicated because vaccination play a lot of role, especially when it comes to, but smallpox is not like malaria that is vector-borne. Malaria is vector-borne, and you need to do a lot because malaria involves the vector, the human, the plasmodium. That's number one. Number two, other factors that also play around with the vector, which is mosquito, that helps build mosquitoes around us. So it's not just about one thing. When it comes to smallpox, that's a direct transmission. But when it comes to malaria, it's indirect transmission. So you find out that if direct is via a vector. So that vector is a major thing, and then the plasmodium also, right? So you need to look at that. Then, depending on the kind of plasmodium, you see, there are some countries in Nigeria you have PF, that's Plasmodium. But in some countries where you have virus. Now, in places where you have virus, you talk about relapse. there's a relapse. Even after you have recovered, you relapse. And you get what I'm saying now? Vipers play that kind of game for you. When you go to a place like Southeast Asia, you find people that have PV that relapse. PF does not relapse, but you find those kind of variations around some of these vectors, parasites that are responsible for malaria. Now, what are effective measures to contain, control, and eradicate an endemic disease? Now, those are things the public health are interested. Partial answer may be obtained using a variety of approaches. Now, mathematical modeling has proven to be an important tool in assisting public health authorities to make informed decisions. The public health authority want to make informed decision that are based on data modeling. Now, you may have a data. If you don't confront it with a model, data will not speak. It will be dumb. So the data speaks when a model is confronted with the data. Model and data are brought together. And then there is what we call conformity between model and data. So when you have conformity between model and data, then you can begin to talk about what the model can now bring out from the data to be able to tell you what is going on. Like now, if I have a data up to 2026 August, and my model is able to conform to a very great level, the performance metric of the model is very strong, now I can use my model to predict from August 2026 to the next 10 years, maybe 2036. And then that information can help in terms of planning for the future. Now, okay, it means that we may have certain number of cases of this if we don't do this, if we do this, and the model can show different kind of scenarios. If we put this number of vaccines here, these are the possibilities. If we don't put, these are the possibilities and all of that. And then this brings us to the obvious question: why is mathematical modeling of disease useful? Part of the answer is that traditional methods using experimental and statistical approaches may not be adequate for various reasons. Now, one of the reasons is infectious disease often affect a large population of individuals over a large geographical area. Experiments conducted in laboratories are often inadequate simply because of the huge difference in scale. So you find that you cannot use experiments. So you gather people and begin to pick them. How many people do you want to pick in the population? And then like guinea fowl, it's not going to work. Then for infectious disease in human, large-scale experiment may be impossible or unethical. So those are reasons. Existing data sets about the disease may not be complete or accurate enough for the statistical analysis to be reliable. So in fact, before you even say you want to do any modeling or analysis on you should first look at do a kind of what I call a test of normality test on your data to test its normal distribution by using box plot. To look at it, from there you'll be able to see, before you even start any statistics, you look at the data you want to use and test so many things about the data before you can say you want to use the data even for either statistical analysis or what's it called? Mathematical modeling. So you also, for instance, there will be little or no disease surveillance data available on infected people who are asymptomatic. Just like I said the other time. Because we don't have record of such people. Now, since repeated experiments of disease outbreak in a population are rarely possible, disease surveillance data often represent a single outbreak with a large amount of information. Statistical analysis of high-dimensional data from small sample is a challenge, since statistics only relies on large samples. So these are some of the challenges you face. Then mathematical modeling is important to keep in mind that a mathematical model is an approximation of the real-world process. It's an approximation of the real-world process. So what it means is that the real world is complex. I'm trying to use modeling to do what? To capture the main essence, depending on my question. So my model cannot capture everything. Like bring everything together at the same time. My model is focusing on a particular question at a particular time. So now it is a mathematical translation. So it means that your model must not be too complex than the real world, because it's an approximation. So if your model is more complex than the real world you are explaining, then there's a problem. It means that you don't understand the story around the real world or the real processes you are looking at. So it's a mathematical translation of our hypothesis about disease transmission. Another important role of mathematical model is hypothesis testing. By comparing the model outcomes with existing knowledge or data of the disease, we can use the model to test various hypotheses about the disease. Compared to experimental approaches, the modeling approach has an advantage of saving enormous amount of time and resources. I told you the other time, you need a good laptop, you need a good brain, you need good data, you need good software, then you're on the go. You want to do modeling. But for experiments, you need to, I have some students who are doing something on molecular. They have to travel to Ogbomoso and stay there for months at a time. One of the resources they needed, they have to order it from Germany, all those kind of wala. By the time they will finish, I've already finished my paper, the first paper. I've started discussing with public health people. Before you say Jack Robinson, I've already finished the second one. Are you getting me now? So now, people need answers. And you see, when you are working in it with industrial people, it's not like doing a PhD. A PhD is for how many years? Minimum is 3 years, right? But if you are working in industry, and an industrial guy give you a problem, and he needs that answer within 1 or 2 weeks, it's not something you are going to do and begin to move from one place to the other. No. The industry said, can you solve this problem? You say yes. You need just 3 weeks. We need an answer. 4 weeks, we need an answer. Not like PhD that you do and do for 3 years or 3 plus X years. And then you come back and you didn't even get results. No, they are not interested in that. So we are in a generation that everybody should be equipped with the tool of modeling. If you are not equipped, the way things are going, some people will be dropped along the line, because the world is changing. It's becoming more dynamic than what you can see now. And the modeling will not just be the kind of traditional one we have been doing. We have to change the paradigm. We have to change our mindset. We have to relearn and unlearn. If we don't do that, you will be static, and nobody will involve you in anything, because you have been left behind. So we need to move from classical to the new trend of what is going on, or else you are not going to move. So now we should caution that a mathematical model is not a magic bullet. It's not that you just give it and then everything will just happen like that. No. There are often many difficulties associated with mathematical modeling. The following is a list of important issues involved. Now, due to our limited knowledge about the infectious disease, realistic assumptions about the transmission process are not always possible. Now, if the more your knowledge about it, at the time we are modeling malaria and we are putting recovered class at the time. But as we read, we saw that we don't need recovered class. Because if you say you recover to become susceptible, so you don't stay in recovered class there. Even if you are infected now and you take some treatments, after your treatment you can still be beaten and then you still fall sick. So we removed recovered and we said no, and we prove it. So, but if you don't equip or update your biology of the disease, if you don't update your biology of the disease, your epidemiology, you'll be modeling something that people don't need anymore. So that's another aspect. So you find out that various degrees of simplification need to be made. If you are going to, you want to model, you have to simplify in terms of you are seeing the real world, and then it's complex. It contains many things. When I talk about malaria, it's not the way you do with measles. I have students working on measles, but you find out that the way we are doing is not the same. When you look at schistosomiasis, it's another complex disease. Or you want to work on onchocerciasis, it's another complex disease. So, and then very often our assumptions are simply hypotheses. When interesting findings from the model, we always need to keep this limitation in mind. And that's why if you are modeling, you must know that every model has a limitation. And you must keep that limitation in mind. You must think about, you must even talk about your limitation. At the end of your result, you must talk about your limitation. Because that is where somebody is going to come up again and say, okay, since this guy has this limitation, then that may be something I want to work on and think about. Now, model validation using disease data is important because it provides a test of our modeling hypothesis. This may not always be possible or may be difficult to do depending on the availability and quality of data. And that's why I said, before you do anything on modeling, good morning, ma'am, you have to understand the quality of your data. Now, and you can do that by just simple box plots. No matter the kind of data you have, even if it's cross-sectional data, I mean, some of the data you collect within a short period of time, experimental data, you do box plot and try to test the normality tests of that data. Now, if you don't understand, if your model does not pass the normality test, why do you want to use it? Sorry, your data does not pass it. Why do you want to use it to model, to do further stronger analysis? It's a waste of time. Because it's going to give a result that will not be useful to make any policy or to do any meaningful thing. So, and then talking about validation, I may just say a few things here, but later you will still see something on validation because there are processes in modeling. It's not just so then the mathematician also have their wish list. Now, if you see a mathematician, his interest is different from the public health guy. The mathematician, when he's doing modeling, what is he looking at? Characterize the qualitative dynamics of the model. So it brings about differential equation, right? And then he's interested in existence and asymptotic stability of solutions. So everything there is mathematics. Now that's where the issue comes, right? Now, as a mathematician, you are doing that for mathematics, not for public health, not for epidemiology, not for policy making. This is just for publication, right? Because all of these type of solution, equilibria, periodic, stability, either global or local or global, that means stability in the large, right? And then condition for persistence, elimination of the disease. Those are the things mathematicians are interested in. And then they are interested in determining types of bivocations, like whether it's forward, transcritical, backward. Does the system exhibit chaotic dynamics? You know what bivocation is, right? Right? When there's a split, right? You have a water tank, and then you have a beam. On the beam you are preparing was prepared for a 1,000 liter water tank. So when you are preparing that beam, you are factored on the beam the weight of the water tank you want to put. And then the next thing is you felt people are increasing in the house. Let's put more this thing there. And then you went and changed it to 15,000. 15,000 liter. What will happen to that beam? So there will be a compression that will change the qualitative behavior of that beam. So that is bifurcation. It bifurcates because the qualitative behavior of the system has been changed due to change in the parameter. You have added something to the parameter, so it changes. So that's bifurcation. Analysis requires the use of dynamical system theories, techniques like Lyapunov theory, Poincaré, Bennington theorem, center manifold theory. The goal, what is the goal here? The goal is to develop a new mathematical theories and techniques for handling large systems of differential equation. How many people are in mathematics here? Mathematicians, let me see your hand. Up, above your head. Oh. I think there are more. Yes, thank you. So you find out that, but in most times, do we normally achieve this goal, this goal, the goal that was set there, that last goal? Do we normally achieve it? Who is going to answer for me? Mathematician, do we normally build new theories? What do we do? Some of you have been published paper. Can somebody come out and tell me? Yes. Come out and tell me. I want somebody, you have raised up your hand. Kazim, come. And tell us where you are from. So people keep copying themselves. When you see 100 papers, everything is the same. Am I telling lie? Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tijani Kazim from Federal University of Agriculture, Makurdi. Yeah, what we do is just to repeat the method that has been used before, then to solve our own problem. Not that we are putting in new techniques in solving our mathematical modeling.
So, and then at the end of the day, the public health people are not being helped. We are just multiplying publication, but there is no impact. Are you getting it? It's not enough to publish. What's the impact of your publication? You have 1 million papers, but zero impact. Right? So you find out that people keep changing variables, changing parameters, and then, Ma, we will welcome you, Ma. Come and talk to us. This is our dean. Can you clap for her? Professor Mrs. Akintayo. Thank you, Ma.
Well, dear participants, it's with joy that I'm here present with you. And I couldn't make it yesterday, the opening, but I sent someone. It's always one meeting and another. And I want to welcome specially our guests. And I hope you are enjoying Nigeria. And our traditional meal is pounded yam and egusi soup. So please try it. And for others joining us from within Nigeria, so please try our delicacy, pounded yam, egusi soup, or efo with bushmeat. I know you will enjoy it. I know Prof will treat you very well. So I wish you a wonderful deliberation and wishing you all the best. Let me use this opportunity again to appreciate our Prof for doing a very good job. We are always proud of him. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man. Can we give her a round of applause? All right. So now you find out that we don't actually develop new mathematical theories or techniques. And that's one of the reasons why ICAMDA has come to correct some of these underlying issues that we've been having over the years, where we do more of basic analysis and then we don't do. See, what makes our paper publishable is not just the basic analysis and the secondary analysis that we do that makes our work to be new. If you are following the trend of a mathematical theory of modeling. So, and then how to use modeling for control, intervention, decision making. So now we enter into this now. Now, I'll be talking, because on this one, I'll be talking more on things that borders on policy-driven models, not just theoretical models. That is what people like organizations like NCDC, that's the kind of thing they need. We can mathematicians and we are not able to solve our societal problem. Now, all the mathematical jargons that we have, all the Fourier analysis, all the big names that we have in maths, what are they doing inside textbooks? So we need to take them out there and use it to solve the problem of humanity. Now, So these are some of the abbreviations you will find in this going forward. You have DALI, which is Disability Adjusted Life Years. And then all the other ones, RITAG, Regional Immunization Technical Advisory Group, and then HBV, Human Papillomavirus, and then SAGE, Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization and all that. So, and then these are some of the other technical words. I may be coming to them afterwards. A scenario representing what has not happened or will not happen. Case fatality ratio, the ratio of number of deaths from a disease to a number of cases of the disease. Assumption, when we say assumption, what do we mean? An input or condition taken as true for modeling purposes, which may not fully reflect real life complexity. Now, and then we have cost benefits ratio. You have the ratio of benefits to cost, a metric commonly used in benefit cost analysis that evaluates two or more policy options, and then interventions or programs in terms of their costs and outcomes in monetary terms. Then we have the counterfactual, a scenario representing what has not happened or will not happen. And then we have cross-validation, cross-validity, a type of model comparison that can be used during model validation, consisting of testing a model on data excluded from the data sets. So this may be the same model with different subsets or data or different sets of parameters. So there are two different types of validation. We have cross-validation. We also have internal or external validation, where you use some performance metrics, MAE and all the likes. External validity, a type of model comparison that can be used during model validation, consisting of comparing model results with the real world. And then phase validity. And these are the ways we respond to model to data relationship. So I'm going to move very fast away from here. Now, modeling insights for immunization decision making. Now, mathematical models are tools that simplify real world. They help decision makers compare the likely impact of implementing a range of policy decisions on disease burden and other outcomes across a population. So people are trying to make decisions. And then how to now make the best decision depends on the model that you have and given the data. Now, by simulating how disease spread and how various immunization approaches might perform under different scenarios, models can inform decisions on when, how, and to whom vaccination should be delivered. So models can do that. Now, models are used to combine available data and other information and make explicit use of assumption and test various scenarios to estimate the likely impact of future decisions. Now, for immunization decision makers, you have e.g. National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, the NITAG members. You know, when you talk about immunization stuff, you are talking diseases that we call vaccine preventable disease. Those are groups. Now, malaria is also a disease that vaccine has been introduced now. You have R21, M-matrix, and all that has been deployed in some states in Nigeria, like I think Bayelsa and one other state. Yes. So, but you find out that now diseases that are under this, what I'm talking about, vaccine preventable diseases, are diseases like measles. We have large number of them. We have hepatitis. We have HPV. HPV, yes, HPV is there. Another disease that are vaccine preventable disease. So expanded program on immunization, these models offer critical insight into outcomes such as the number of illnesses and deaths a vaccine intervention could prevent, the necessary threshold for achieving herd protection. You know, herd protection means that I have like take for instance measles. The reproduction number for measles is between 18 and 20. That means measles, like if somebody is infected with measles, he can at least infect 18%, between 18 to 20%. Now, what it means is that now, if we want to vaccinate, I need to consider what we call the HIT. HIT is herd immunity threshold. The herd immunity threshold is equal to 1 minus 1 all over R naught. Now, if I know my R naught, let's say my R naught is 20, right? 1 minus 1 over 20 is what? Is what? Huh? 1 minus 1 over 20, what is it? It's going to give me 80%, right? That's 80%. Now, it means that due to my herd immunity threshold, I only need to vaccinate 80% of the population. I don't need to vaccinate everybody because someone else's vaccination can do what? Can be my protection. Right? So that's how vaccination is being deployed. Okay? And then now, but when you look at measles now in Nigeria, we don't have 80% coverage for vaccination coverage. We don't have. And that's why you still see that even though the vaccine is there, people are still what? Infected. Now, in fact, the susceptible profile of people who are the immunity profile, the susceptible profile of people who are having measles are more. Susceptible profile are more. Immunity profile is low. Because so many things has come up with vaccination. Cultural people feel that, why should you vaccinate me? They said when they vaccinate, they are introducing something to your body. A lot of different myths that are going on, and then people are saying, no, don't vaccinate my child and all of that. So this is affecting, when it comes to vaccination preventable disease, you see this kind of thing now. And then the question is, and the expected costs, how much is it going to cost us to do this, to carry out this exercise? Now, because all of these things are funded, there are funding from WHO, from United Nations, from Gates Foundation, from a Global Fund and all of that. And then you have to look at then internal funding also. So although models do not replace the local evidence, they can bridge gaps in settings where such data are unavailable or incomplete. Now, as a modeler, you can develop a model, especially for a disease that you don't have a data yet. You can develop a model. Yes. So if you develop the model can inform collection of data. It can show collection of data. So that kind of model should not be repeated. Somebody develop this model and then you go and copy again and develop and another. No. That is once and for all model. Just for people to know, okay, understand the spread of the disease and then know what kind of data we can collect, and it gives the public health information. So they go ahead based on your model result or output to collect those data. Now, ultimately, modeling results should be interpreted in combination with other sources of reliable evidence, operational realities, and ethical consideration. Now, you are interpreting your model outside, like somebody work on a model that does not have to do with any location. And I say, our model results shows that if treatment is used, about 16,000 cases will be averted. Where? Because you don't have any you don't have any data of that location. So nobody can use that one to advise anything. You just say, well, all you mathematicians, you'll be playing your game. They push you aside. I was somewhere, last 2 weeks at UCH, that's University College Hospital. And, it pained me that it's people who are, the woman that invited me to come and give a talk on depression. He doesn't know anything about modeling. But do you know, he got a grant. He got a grant on modeling for women and adolescents in mental health and depression. Modeling, mathematical modeling. He got $500,000. Sit down there. And she is not a mathematician. She's a consultant psychiatric. Yes. But she could bring mathematicians here together and we help her to brainstorm. And then she was the one that led the project. She was the one chopping the real thing. So I was telling my student that we went together, I said, see now. Where are the mathematicians in UI, University of Ghana? Where are they? They are not here. They are not here. They will be doing like, if you don't solve the problem. Whereas somebody in UCH is solving the problem and putting the money in his pocket, in our pocket. Who is solving the real problem? Eh? The one that has the grants. The woman has more than 10 grants that she's controlling. Yes, more than 10. Those are the kind of places I want to go so that I will be challenged. Yes, now, you don't sit in this kind of environment where you are king of what? King of mosquitoes. You didn't know. When you see me bringing in a cake yesterday, that was where I learned it. I went there, I saw it. I said, no, I'll copy this one. You go out and copy good things and bring it to your own house. I've never gone to any conference and they do it like that. But I said, see this one, oh, hey, introduce another concept into conference. They were cutting cake. Then no problem. We are going to try this as well. Are you getting me now? So you see, we must not be thinking myopically. If you are thinking myopically, most mathematicians are always thinking within the box. You need to think outside the box so that you can relate your math into anything. Now, I'm already including non-infectious disease to my work now. I started working on depression and cancer. Yes. In fact, last week again, I started thinking of problems in finance. I want to work with CBN. I want to use this model. There are plenty in my head. Let me not use it for biology alone. In banking, in insurance, in finance. There are problems there in Nigeria. I don't see any mathematician in those places. They are just doing everything on the board, in the classroom, wasting all those mathematics. I'm tired of that. Are you getting now? When I saw the woman, I was like, if I ask her to write S square, she cannot write S square. I'm telling you, she doesn't know S square. What she's collecting, she's collecting all the money you mathematicians are supposed to collect. She's the one collecting it. Every year now, she will say, okay, Professor Bakare, you have not helped us to do this. She's giving me peanuts. But yes, now, because she's the owner of our project. She's giving me peanuts. So that's why mathematicians need to wake up. Let's start thinking beyond the box. I'm rounding off. Because it's crazy that somebody in a, what's it called? In a medical something is the one collecting all the funds you're supposed to get. And you are busy saying you are doing a differential equation, calculus of variation. Eh? Bifurcation, analysis, that does not bring anything on the table. If you do the bifurcation and it makes you to get grant, it's better. But if you are doing it just to make yourself happy, and then you publish, I say how many paper you get 59 and 1,000 paper, and then that 1,000 paper, when your child falls sick and they say they need 1 million naira, cannot provide you, it's a crime. You do understand? The woman now, she's let me tell you, she has more paper. In fact, when you have grants, you have more paper. You have more paper. You have more even good, better papers. Yes. So I'm challenging us as a roundup that we need to rise up. Rise up. This conference, this workshop, for 3 weeks is meant to, steer us into something new. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that wonderful session. Another round of applause for Prof. And I believe that while Prof was talking, that our hearts were already, being enlarged. The scope of our minds already been enlarged to see beyond just what is happening in the classroom to, what this research can actually bring to the table. All right, thank you very much, Prof, for that wonderful session. And I believe that also, when Prof was talking, each time that Prof give this overview, it looks new, it looks fresh, and again, it broadens one's horizon to actually see just beyond what is happening in the sphere of the classroom to, using this mathematics to actually get things done in the society. Of course, you've heard Prof talked about making informed decision. And so our mathematics is not just meant to end in publication or meant to end in making ourselves happy. It's actually meant to solve problem in the societal problem. And so our heart should be that should solve problem in the society. A round of applause again for Prof for that wonderful session. So we'll be taking some few questions, and very snappy, very fast, make it brief, some few questions before we go for our tea break. So if you have a question, just make it fast and brief. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 5 is enough. So 5 of you can just come up and ask that question in brief. So our Prof will attend to those 5 questions. Those 5 I count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Please walk up here quickly and make it snappy. The 5 of us, so your question.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Prof. My name is Dr. Ifelua from Adeleke University. I'm actually a statistician, sir. And I loved the presentation. In fact, I'm here because I want to venture into medical statistics and epidemiology. And you've shared a lot of things, especially from the angle of application. Over the years, I've had privilege of analyzing for people in public health and the likes. But it looks like I just come from the angle of an analyst and not somebody that have the understanding of the core area of epidemiology. So I would like to know, where do I start from as a researcher if I want to go into medical statistics and epidemiology, understanding that the data analysis part, statistics part, I understand very well, but the core industrial exposure that will make me be able to research properly in that field, I would like to understand how to get started. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you see, like if you are a statistician, if you are not careful, now there are 3 levels of research. You have primary, you have secondary, you have tertiary. Now, you as a statistician and I as a mathematician, I belong to the secondary when it comes to the game of working with biologists and all these people, application. Now, because the reason is because now they collect the data because they understand the biology, they go for experiment or do surveillance. Maybe like you are working with an epidemiologist, you are not the one that collect the data. You understand what I'm saying now? But one thing you have to do, because if you are not careful, you become an handbag all your life. You understand? Handbag researcher, where you'll be given peanuts. You can't have your own projects. So they will continue to use you and give you, you'll be happy. When somebody has collected 200 million naira and he gave you, maybe he gave you 500,000. You understand? You are happy because your salary, how much is it? But the guy is pocketing something very serious in his pocket. So you have to, what do? You have to enter. You see, when I was talking malaria, if I face somebody who is a malariologist, I can, by the grace of God, I can fall him down. Because I read it like water every day. I carry it every day, everywhere. If you talk about anything about malaria, I can download it for you. The epidemiology, the pathology of malaria, I can talk about it, including climate effect, everything about at least by the grace of God. Eh? So what I'm saying is that now, if you are going to work in that space, you need to also study the biology, epidemiology. You want to work in any disease. You see now, I didn't have to go and do another course on that. I read them. I buy books. I read them and I understand them. I listen to tapes, everything. You understand? When you do that, you can enter that space. And then you can control projects. I have a project that I'm the one controlling it. I have malaria people under me. Yes. But because I understand the intricacies of malaria and all those things, and the area I'm entering now, that's why I have to study about cancer very well. You know, we have different kind of cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer. If I'm going in any aspect of it, I will be able to tell you everything about cancer. Both the immunology of cancer, the epidemiology of cancer, the biology of cancer, everything. You know that. Yeah, you can write stories around it. And then you now have your statistics. What they don't have. And that's where you can really, so you need to equip that aspect. That's where you can control things.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Adiri Sijola Morenike. I'm a medical microbiologist from Babcock University, Department of Microbiology. Yeah, coming to this conference is really a breakthrough for me because I have a very, very tumultuous relationship with mathematics. You know, but when the advert came up, the epidemiology was what encouraged me that, you know what, because I'm a medicinal plants researcher, solving the problem of antimicrobial resistance with novel medicinal plants, okay? And over the years, the data I've collected showed that, it confirms the fact that by 2050, we wouldn't have antibiotics to treat diseases anymore. You understand? So coming to this program, I thought, okay, let me see how mathematical modeling can help us solve the problem of antimicrobial resistance. So your talk really encouraged me and thought, well, I'm not lost. So I just want to ask you, someone with my background, how do I navigate? Thank you very much.
I have in my group someone like people from toxicology who are also working on AMR, like pharmaceutical toxicology and all that. They are not here, maybe Delta State and all that. And I mean, one thing about it is that if you can see your data, we can see the marks. Right? If you see your data, we'll see the marks. That's all.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Good morning, Prof. My question is, are all diseases model mathematical? Whether they are infectious or non-infectious. And now, so also, are there certain criteria that a disease will exhibit for you to make a choice of the model to use on that disease or that data?
So you are talking about there. Now, like I said the other time, that what determines a model is a question you want to answer. Now, generally, there is no disease you cannot model, generally, mathematically, without data. You understand? But when it comes to you bringing it to like something that can help guide policy, decision making, and all that, so you need data. You need to know about the disease. Then the question you now want to answer will determine whether I want to use the dynamic model or a statistical model or an health economic model. As we go on, we'll see some of the stuff that we want to talk about. But there is no disease that cannot be modeled generally. You get me now with mathematics. But now depend on your question. So the question will now be that, can this disease be modeled with mathematics model or with a statistical model or with any other model given the situation?
Thank you very much, Prof.
Yes, sir. My name is Waris Adeleke from the Department of Biochemistry, Federal University of Ekiti. So, my question is that me as a biochemist, how does biological data translate into mathematical instruments for modeling? Because I have been finding it hard to sense a connection between the two.
So data is done. The mathematical model makes it to speak. So what happens is, if you have a data, and then we understand the data, we raise questions based on the data, and then we'll know what kind of mathematical model or statistical model can be useful in addressing what your data is saying. So now you are not a mathematician. That's why it's difficult for you to think through. Do you understand? But as you learn, maybe over time, as you learn and get exposed on these, in the course of this workshop, it's still today is the second day, right? So it's still 3 weeks. So as you learn, you begin to see what and what. But apart from that, you also need to work with people who are in that space. So you have the data, I have the mathematics. So then you can speak the language correctly.
Thank you, Prof.
All right, thank you so much, sir, for the presentation. In the course of your presentation, you mentioned that before you begin to work on the models for your data, you would first need to test for normality. So my question is, how does mathematical modeling respond to non-parametric data, being that real-world parametric, non-normal, yes, being that most real-world data tend to be non-parametric? Then you also spoke about pursuing researches that inform policy. So how do we go about choosing a problem for a research that would inform policy, and then upon completion of that, actually see it through to the point where it actually does inform policy?
I said that if you have a data, you cannot do anything like any statistical, any analysis first before any complex analysis, either modeling or stuff on it, except you have tested for that's normal distribution stuff. And the reason is because data contains a lot of sometimes you find missing data, you find what do you call it? Outliers, yes. So you find outliers and then a lot of things. So, but by the time you run your stuff, you'll be able to know then whether it's left skewed or right skewed, and you will know many things about the data. That's number one. Number two is also that by the time you have done that, now you know what the data is saying. Then it guides you on like how do you now work on this data to produce the result you want to want. There are areas in like if I want to fit a model to a particular data now that is not normal. You understand? I will make sure that maybe I use another parameter estimation method that is different from the one that can capture you. So I already know that, okay, this one, since it's not going this part, I have other aspects that I can use. So that is, then number two is now when it comes to policy-driven model, there are two ways to it. Now, you need to work with people in the epidemiology space, like NCDC, NMEP, you understand? They have questions that they want to answer. You understand? So with that, at the beginning of your work, you know that you are doing something that they need. Not that something that at the end of the day, you just found in a research journal and you just want to work on academic. But if you are doing, like most of my PhD students, I can say all of my PhD students on the Gates Foundation project, they are actually working on NMEP projects. They are mathematicians, mathematical modelers, all of them that you see here. They are working on NMEP projects. Are you getting it now? So the questions they are answering is based on their operational research agenda that they want us to answer. So at the end of the day, there is feedback every month. You understand? So that kind of thing so in the course of time, they bring us into their meeting, they invite us to come and give talk, they invite us to make input in what they're doing. So that's the kind of thing that can be done. And then you'll be recognized that there are people who are doing And then when we publish, we include them because we have access to their national data. We can plug it in here anytime. We can download their data and use it for our modeling work. So at the end of the day, we are working together, even though we are in the mathematical modeling space.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, Prof. My name is Bankole. I'm a PhD prospective candidate. I haven't put in. When I saw the flyer of this program, then I knew I'm coming for modeling. Spending 3 weeks here. My first questions are on ad protection. I want you to elaborate more. Then secondly, some of us are looking for one way or the other in our academics area, and we look forward for your recommendation. So probably after the program. Thank you.
Which area? Okay. Now, so add immunity has to do with like add immunity threshold. You want to immunize people. You know, vaccination is meant to confer immunity on you. Now, if you are given a vaccination and it doesn't confer immunity, that vaccination is a waste. So it's meant to confer immunity on you. Now, when vaccination is given, now before it's given, is calculated from the point of view of the R-naughts, the reproduction number. So when like I gave an example of measles. Now, measles, the reproduction number for measles is between 18 to 20. So for 20 now, I said the HIT formula is 1 minus 1 over R-naught. So 1 minus 1 over 20 will be around 80%, right? 80%. So it means that if I'm vaccinating anybody at all on measles, it should be 80% of the target population. So at the end of the day, most times it's not achieved. And when it's not achieved, so we can't have herd immunity. Do you understand? That means the population, immunity of the population. Do you understand? So the whole population, the target population are not immunized. So in the long run, the disease is still there. So that's what has made measles to be endemic. By now, just like smallpox is eradicated because large number of people has been vaccinated. But measles, because people are not taking the vaccine, so there is vaccine hesitancy. So it's causing measles to still be persistent. So any disease that has vaccine, when people don't take the vaccine, the disease remains persistent. Normally, vaccine is one of the most useful control intervention that can easily lead us from control to elimination and then to eradication. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Prof, please, we will still be having 2 more questions, 2 online questions. So we'll be taking those 2 questions. Oyetayo, if you are ready, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
All right, can you hear me?
Oyetayo? Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Oyetayo Ebisi. So I'm speaking from Kenya. I'm an MSc student of Pan African University. So thank you so much for that insightful presentation, Prof. You highlighted many important points about disease modeling and then understanding that different diseases are actually influenced by different factors depending on the region. So, however, I'm actually concerned about Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian. So, given that if you are considering the limitation of, like the limited availability of a comprehensive national health database in Nigeria, so how can we develop accurate and reliable models? So, because it seems like models built using data from other countries may not actually directly applicable to Nigerian context because of difference in demographics, maybe healthcare systems, and then environmental factors. or let's say even disease patterns as well. So in such a situations, what approach would you recommend for researchers working on disease modeling in Nigeria? Thank you, sir.
Okay, depending on the disease you are looking at, like for malaria, you have NMAP. For other disease like vaccine preventable disease, you have NPHCDA, which is National Primary Health Care Developmental Agency. And then you also have NCDC, which is Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So these are platforms you can consult, especially a mathematician for secondary data. Now you can get data from them to do any kind of study. And then recently we also have a national cancer something in Abuja. So depend if you want to work on cancer disease and all that. So, and apart from that, you can also do a very thorough literature review. Not to get parameter values, to get data. And if you want to do that, most mathematicians, when you are looking for papers, you go to Google and you are working on infectious disease. That's a wrong place to start. If you want to if you are working on infectious disease or non-infectious disease, the first place to go is to check PubMed. PubMed, yeah, PUBMED. So PubMed will give you publications, not just in mathematical model. Because if you want to work on a mathematical modeling and you are starting with a mathematical modeling paper, you are starting on the wrong note. It's like somebody who is working mathematical finance and you went to start with a mathematical finance paper, you are starting on the wrong note. You start a finance paper that talks about the theory of finance. And then you now bring in your maths. Where does your maths come in when you understand what they are saying in finance? Because if you don't speak their language, they will not listen to you. You are talking to somebody who is a doctor, a medical doctor. You are talking according to bifurcation, forward bifurcation, backward bifurcation, the local stability, you don't be looking at when you finish, say, well, okay, all these things, when you get to your mathematics conference, you go and tell them about this one. They will sit you down and you will never talk again in your life. Yes. But when you are speaking their language, say, certain number of cases are going to be averted. You are speaking what they can relate with. They will ask you, okay, it's like you are talking our own time here, even though you are a mathematical modeler. So that's why you go and read PubMed, papers from PubMed that talks about malaria, HPV, hepatitis B, cancer, and all of that. When you do that, and you are now relating with your mathematics, then somebody will know that you have the language that you can use to convince this thing. So you need to check those. And apart from that, you can get data. I wanted to work on CSM, that's cerebrospinal meningitis, affecting people in the north. I went online and I thought somebody has done, like the people did epidemiology of CSM in the north, far north. And he put the data there. And I'm using the data now. The data is there. Many of us, you just say there are data on literatures. In fact, even if somebody plot a graph with the data and you cannot see the data, there are data extractor. With the graph, you put it under a data extractor. All the data in that graph, he will release it for you. If somebody put a graph there and he doesn't put the table, go to data extractor, he will release all the data for you. And you get the data and use it. So, then you can also collect your own data, maybe through questionnaire.
Thank you very much, Prof. And the very last one, just Latif, read it for us.
Thank you so much, Prof. So we have a question from the online participants. This question is asked by Charlotte Aima. She said, I have two questions. Prof mentioned that our model must conform to the data before it can be used to predict. Was Prof talking about validation? The second question, if I have large-scale baseline data from a trial with intervention still ongoing, can it be used to predict outcome for present informed decision while awaiting trials finding? Thank you.
It can be used as a virtual clinical trial. Virtual. Like they are still going on experimental, clinical trial, the real clinical trial. But mathematical model can be used as a virtual clinical trial. In the sense that there's an intervention piloting going on, and then you have some field data. You can use mathematical model to forecast or predict. You can use it. And then the first question has to do with Latif. The first question has to do with So now, before you use a model to predict, you have to carry out cross-validation. Not just internal validation, cross-validation in the sense that you divide the data into, you have some out of sample data. You understand? So you use one, and then so that, if your model will still be able to capture that dynamics out of sample data. And that's when you can use it to predict. If you don't do that, you can't predict. And that is different from fitting. We'll still discuss some of these things. There's difference between model fitting or model calibration and model validation. And then internal validation. These are things we are going to talk.
Thank you very much, Prof. So a round of applause for Prof for that wonderful session and